In a desolate landscape, under the blistering sun, a group of shepherd boys wandered across the arid hills near Qumran. Their goats roamed freely over the uneven terrain as the boys entertained themselves by tossing stones into a nearby cave. Suddenly, a dull yet sharp cracking sound echoed from the depths of the cave. The boys hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Had they just broken something? Curiosity overcame fear, and they scrambled down to investigate. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and ancient clay jars stood in eerie silence. Their trembling hands pried open one of the jars, revealing something that had not been seen in thousands of years. Scrolls, fragile yet mysteriously preserved. Unbeknownst to them, they had uncovered one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century: the Dead Sea Scrolls. Among these texts was something extraordinary, something long forgotten by time: the Book of Enoch. This ancient manuscript, once considered sacred by some, had been lost to history. But why? What secrets did it hold that made it unworthy of inclusion in the Bible? History, as we know it, is written by the victors. Yet as centuries pass, stories are buried, altered, and forgotten. The tale of Enoch, an ancestor of Noah, is one such story. His book, once widely read, was later rejected and deemed uncanonical. But what could possibly be so dangerous about a text that it had to be erased from religious doctrine? Throughout ancient texts, legends persist of divine beings walking among humans, of wisdom passed down from beyond mortal understanding, of great disasters that reshaped civilization. Were these mere allegories, or did they contain fragments of a forgotten truth? Consider this. If a book held revelations that challenged the prevailing narratives of history, would it not be in the interest of the powerful to suppress it? If the tales of the past spoke too plainly of events that certain authorities wished to control, would they not ensure that such knowledge was dismissed as myth and cast into obscurity? The Book of Enoch is no ordinary text. It is a collection of writings attributed to Enoch, the seventh patriarch after Adam, described as a righteous man who walked with God and was taken to heaven without experiencing death. This book expands on the Genesis story in ways that are both mysterious and unsettling. Enoch's writings tell of watchers, powerful beings tasked with observing humanity. It speaks of their descent to earth and their subsequent defiance of divine law. It describes a world where knowledge was exchanged between these celestial beings and humankind, but at a terrible cost. And most shockingly, it foretells the Great Flood, not as a random act of divine wrath, but as a necessary event to cleanse the world of corruption. Why was this book removed from the sacred texts? Was it considered too radical, too revealing? Why was it excluded from the Bible, while other ancient writings remained? The answers to these questions take us back to a time before recorded history, to a story that echoes across cultures and civilizations, revealing a past that is far more complex than we have been led to believe. The region of Qumran, situated near the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea, has long been a place of mystery. For centuries, it remained largely unremarkable, a barren, rocky desert landscape with little to suggest it once held profound historical significance. However, its remote location made it the perfect hiding place for something extraordinary. In ancient times, Qumran was home to a secluded religious community, often associated with the Essenes, a Jewish sect that lived in strict discipline and devoted their lives to preserving sacred texts. This group believed in the coming of a great reckoning and meticulously recorded their beliefs, prophecies, and historical events on parchment scrolls. When they sensed an impending catastrophe, possibly due to the increasing tensions with the Roman Empire, they hid these scrolls in the caves surrounding their settlement, hoping to protect them from destruction. For nearly 2,000 years, the texts remained undisturbed, sealed away from the shifting sands of history. Then, by sheer accident, they were uncovered in a discovery that would shake the foundations of biblical scholarship. The year was 1946. A group of young Bedouin shepherds roamed the harsh, rocky terrain of Qumran, tending to their flock. Seeking shelter from the sun, they wandered near the entrance of a cave. One of the boys, curious and playful, picked up a stone and threw it into the darkened hollow. A loud cracking noise echoed from within. Startled, the boys hesitated before cautiously stepping inside. The air was thick with the scent of dust and time itself. Their eyes adjusted to the dim light, revealing the outlines of large, ancient clay jars, some sealed and untouched for centuries. Driven by curiosity, they pried open one of the jars. Inside, wrapped in linen, were delicate parchment scrolls, some still intact, others crumbling at the edges. They could not have known at that moment that they had stumbled upon one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the modern era. The boys took a few scrolls and, not understanding their value, attempted to sell them in the local market. News of the mysterious texts quickly spread, attracting the attention of scholars, historians, and antiquities dealers. Soon, experts began to piece together the significance of what had been found. Once the academic world caught wind of the discovery, archaeologists and biblical scholars rushed to Qumran. Over the following years, systematic excavations revealed that the initial find was just the beginning. Additional searches uncovered 11 caves, each containing fragments of scrolls, increasing the total number of manuscripts found to nearly 900. These texts, now known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, included copies of nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible, along with a collection of lesser-known religious writings. Among them was a document that stood apart from the rest, a work long thought to be lost, the Book of Enoch. Unlike the other texts, the Book of Enoch was not included in the traditional Jewish or Christian canon. This raised immediate questions. Why was it hidden? Why was it preserved when so many other writings from the period were lost? And why had religious authorities rejected it? As scholars began translating the text, they uncovered a narrative unlike any other, a story of divine intervention, forbidden knowledge, and a world that had once been much different from the one we know today. The Book of Enoch is one of the most enigmatic and controversial ancient texts ever discovered. It expands upon the biblical narrative in ways that are both compelling and unsettling, detailing events that were left vague or unexplored in traditional scripture. Though it is not included in the modern biblical canon, it was once regarded as an essential religious text by certain early Jewish and Christian groups. The book itself is divided into 5 distinct sections, each providing insight into different aspects of ancient history, morality, and divine judgment. The first section, the Book of Watchers, is perhaps the most well-known. It describes a group of powerful beings, known as the Watchers, who were assigned to observe humanity. However, over time, they abandoned their role as mere observers and began to interact with humans in ways that defied divine law. They introduced knowledge and skills previously unknown to mankind, teaching them agriculture, metalworking, and other crafts. However, their interference also led to corruption, violence, and chaos. This section of the book explains how these transgressions ultimately led to divine intervention, setting the stage for a great catastrophe that would reshape the world. The second section, the Book of Parables, contains visions attributed to Enoch himself. These visions focus on themes of justice, righteousness, and divine judgment. The text warns of an impending reckoning, emphasizing that those who stray from morality will face severe consequences. Many scholars believe that these parables influenced later religious doctrines concerning judgment and the afterlife. Unlike traditional biblical prophecy, which often speaks in symbolic terms, the Book of Enoch presents a vivid and detailed portrayal of what awaits both the righteous and the wicked. The third section, the Astronomical Book, delves into the movements of celestial bodies and their influence on timekeeping and religious observance. Enoch is depicted as a figure possessing great knowledge of the stars, which he claims was revealed to him through divine visions. This section outlines a calendar system that differs from the traditional lunar-based Hebrew calendar, suggesting an advanced understanding of astronomy in the ancient world. The text describes how celestial cycles were used to determine the timing of religious festivals and significant historical events. The fourth section, the Book of Dream Visions, consists of symbolic dreams that recount the history of the world. Enoch describes visions of past and future events, using allegory to illustrate the rise and fall of nations. The dreams portray struggles between different groups of people, divine interventions, and the consequences of moral decay. This section provides an alternative perspective on biblical history, one that suggests a deeper connection between human choices and divine actions. The use of dreams as a means of conveying truth was common in ancient religious traditions, making this section particularly significant. The final section, the Epistle of Enoch, serves as both a warning and a message of hope. It emphasizes the importance of righteousness, humility, and obedience to divine will. The epistle reminds readers that, although corruption and injustice may prevail for a time, they will ultimately be judged and corrected. It also highlights the role of chosen individuals in guiding humanity toward a better path. This section reflects many of the moral and ethical concerns found in later religious texts, reinforcing themes of accountability and redemption. One of the most striking aspects of the Book of Enoch is its portrayal of events leading up to a great flood. While the biblical account of Noah's Ark briefly mentions the increasing wickedness of mankind, the Book of Enoch provides a more detailed explanation. It suggests that human corruption was not merely the result of natural moral decline, but was exacerbated by external influences. This perspective shifts the narrative from a simple story of punishment to a broader lesson about the consequences of unchecked power and knowledge. The text also explores the idea of divine justice in a way that differs from traditional scripture. Rather than depicting a singular moment of judgment, it presents a continuous process in which human actions are constantly weighed and measured. This idea aligns with many ancient philosophies that emphasize the balance between order and chaos. The Book of Enoch suggests that those who seek wisdom and virtue will ultimately prevail, while those who misuse power will face inevitable consequences. Given the depth and complexity of its teachings, it is not surprising that the Book of Enoch was regarded as highly significant in ancient times. Early Christian thinkers, including some of the Church Fathers, referenced it in their writings. However, as religious institutions sought to establish a unified doctrine, certain texts were excluded from the official canon. The Book of Enoch, with its unconventional narratives and alternative explanations of biblical events, may have been seen as too controversial or difficult to integrate into mainstream teachings. Despite its exclusion, the text has never been completely forgotten. It survived through various translations, particularly in Ethiopian religious traditions, where it remains a canonical text today. Its rediscovery among the Dead Sea Scrolls reignited interest in its contents, prompting scholars to reconsider its historical and theological significance. While debates continue about its authenticity and authority, there is no denying that the Book of Enoch offers a unique window into the beliefs and concerns of ancient civilizations. Ultimately, whether one views the Book of Enoch as a sacred text, a historical document, or a collection of allegorical stories, it remains a compelling piece of literature. It challenges conventional interpretations of history and morality, encouraging readers to explore deeper questions about justice, knowledge, and the human condition. Its narratives, filled with both cautionary lessons and hopeful messages, continue to resonate across cultures and generations. The Book of Enoch contains themes and narratives that bear striking similarities to various ancient civilizations. Across different cultures and time periods, there are shared accounts of divine beings influencing humanity, moral corruption leading to catastrophe, and the rise and fall of great societies. These parallels suggest that the concerns and beliefs reflected in Enoch's writings were not isolated, but rather part of a broader ancient worldview. By examining these connections, we can gain a deeper understanding of how similar themes appeared in multiple traditions, and how they influenced historical and religious thought. One of the most compelling links can be found in ancient Mesopotamian texts, particularly the Sumerian and Babylonian records. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest recorded stories, describes a great flood that closely resembles the biblical account of Noah and the version found in the Book of Enoch. In the epic, a righteous man named Utnapishtim is warned by the gods about an impending flood and is instructed to build a massive vessel to preserve life. The similarities between this story and the flood narrative in Enoch suggest that these traditions may share a common origin. Additionally, Mesopotamian mythology frequently references powerful beings who interact with humanity, often in ways that parallel the watchers described in Enoch's writings. Beyond Mesopotamia, The concept of divine beings instructing or influencing humanity appears in Egyptian mythology as well. The ancient Egyptians recorded accounts of rulers and priests receiving knowledge from celestial figures. Many pharaohs were believed to be guided by divine wisdom, which granted them authority and legitimacy. Similarly, the Book of Enoch describes figures who were entrusted with special knowledge, but in this case the transmission of wisdom led to unintended consequences. The parallels between these narratives raise important questions about how different civilizations conceptualized divine instruction and its impact on human society. Another significant connection can be found in Greek mythology, particularly in the stories of the Titans and Olympian gods. The myth of Prometheus, who defied Zeus by giving fire to humanity, echoes the theme of forbidden knowledge seen in the Book of Enoch. Just as Prometheus was punished for his transgression, the Watchers in Enoch's writings faced divine retribution for sharing knowledge that was not meant for human beings. The Greeks, like many other cultures, wrestled with the idea that knowledge could be both a blessing and a curse. The theme of divine beings crossing a moral boundary to grant wisdom or power to humanity appears repeatedly across different traditions, reinforcing the idea that this was a widespread concern in the ancient world. In Celtic and Norse traditions, there are also references to beings who shape human destiny by granting them knowledge or tools to survive and thrive. Legends from Ireland speak of the Tuatha De Danann, a group of powerful and wise figures who once ruled before being displaced by later civilizations. These figures were said to possess great wisdom and skills, much like the Watchers in the Book of Enoch. Meanwhile, in Norse mythology, the god Odin sacrifices himself to gain knowledge of the runes, reinforcing the idea that wisdom often comes at a great cost. Further connections can be found in Native American and Mesoamerican myths. Many indigenous traditions include stories of great floods, moral corruption, and divine retribution. Among the Mayan and Aztec civilizations, there are accounts of previous ages of humanity being destroyed due to imbalance and wrongdoing. The Popol Vuh, a sacred text of the Quiché Maya, tells of cycles in which humanity is created, makes grave mistakes, and is ultimately destroyed before a new civilization emerges. The parallels with Enoch's writings suggest that the idea of divine judgment and the consequences of human corruption were themes that transcended geographical and cultural boundaries. The prevalence of these recurring themes raises the question, why did so many ancient civilizations share similar narratives? While the specifics of each tradition differ, the core messages remain consistent. The Book of Enoch, like many other ancient texts, serves as both a historical record and a moral guide. It conveys warnings about the misuse of power, the responsibility that comes with knowledge, and the consequences of defying divine laws. The fact that such themes appear across multiple civilizations indicates that these were universal concerns in the ancient world. The historical significance of the Book of Enoch extends beyond religious doctrine. It provides valuable insight into the ethical and philosophical beliefs of early societies. By examining the parallels between Enoch's writings and those of other ancient civilizations, we can see how human beings, across different cultures and historical periods, grappled with similar existential and moral dilemmas. The text offers a unique perspective on how ancient societies understood justice, divine intervention, and the fragile balance between order and chaos. Despite its exclusion from the biblical canon, the Book of Enoch continues to be studied and debated by scholars, theologians, and historians. Its themes resonate not only because of their historical significance, but also because they continue to be relevant in discussions about morality, knowledge, and human nature. By recognizing the shared narratives between Enoch's writings and those of other ancient traditions, we can gain a broader appreciation for how humanity has long sought to understand its place in the universe. The Book of Enoch holds a unique place in ancient religious literature, but despite its significance, it was deliberately excluded from the official biblical canon. The process of determining which texts would be considered sacred and authoritative was not instantaneous, but rather evolved over centuries. While certain religious traditions continued to reference Enoch's writings, mainstream Judaism and Christianity gradually dismissed the book as non-canonical. The reasons for its suppression are complex, involving theological debates, shifts in religious authority, and the need for doctrinal unity. In the early centuries of Jewish tradition, various religious texts circulated among different groups. Some of these texts, like the Torah and the prophetic writings, became central to Jewish religious practice. Others, including the Book of Enoch, were read and respected by certain sects, but were not universally accepted. One of the key factors influencing the book's exclusion was its association with the Essenes, a Jewish sect that lived in isolation and followed strict religious practices. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the caves of Qumran revealed that the Essenes held the Book of Enoch in high regard, as multiple copies of the text were found among their writings. However, as Jewish religious leadership became more centralized, texts associated with fringe groups were increasingly marginalized. Another important factor in the suppression of the Book of Enoch was the evolving nature of Jewish theology. While the Hebrew Bible contains references to figures like Enoch, mainstream Judaism gradually moved away from the book's themes, particularly its detailed descriptions of divine beings and judgment. The Pharisaic and later rabbinic traditions, which shaped Jewish thought after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, prioritized texts that aligned with their theological interpretations. As a result, writings that emphasized apocalyptic visions and non-traditional views of divine justice, such as the Book of Enoch, were largely set aside. The book's fate in Christianity followed a similar pattern. In the early years of the Christian movement, many different writings were considered valuable, and various Christian communities relied on a diverse set of scriptures. Some early church fathers referenced the Book of Enoch, particularly because parts of it seemed to align with Christian teachings about divine judgment and righteousness. One of the most well-known references to the Book of Enoch appears in the New Testament, in the Epistle of Jude 1:14-15, where Enoch is quoted directly. This citation suggests that early Christians were familiar with the book and regarded it as authoritative. However, as Christianity grew and became more structured, church leaders sought to define an official set of sacred writings. By the 4th century, the formation of the Christian biblical canon was well underway. Church councils, theological debates, and the need for doctrinal unity led to the selection of certain texts while others were left out. The Book of Enoch, with its unique perspectives and apocalyptic visions, did not fit neatly into the emerging theological framework. While some Christian groups, particularly in Ethiopia, continued to preserve and venerate the book, it was excluded from the broader Christian canon used by the Roman and Eastern churches. One possible reason for its exclusion was its departure from mainstream biblical themes. While the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament contain apocalyptic imagery, the Book of Enoch presents a far more detailed and structured vision of divine judgment. It describes elaborate celestial hierarchies, narratives of rebellious beings, and a vivid portrayal of the consequences of moral corruption. These elements may have been seen as too speculative or as conflicting with established doctrine. Additionally, the book's focus on secret knowledge and divine revelations could have been viewed with skepticism by religious authorities seeking to maintain theological consistency. The rejection of the Book of Enoch also reflects broader historical and political dynamics. By the time Christianity became the dominant religion in the Roman Empire, church leaders were working to establish a unified belief system. This effort required not only defining what was considered sacred scripture but also addressing competing interpretations and beliefs. Texts that were widely read but not universally accepted posed a challenge to this goal. In this context, the Book of Enoch may have been seen as a problematic text, one that contained elements that could lead to theological disputes or alternative teachings outside the developing Christian orthodoxy. Despite its exclusion, the Book of Enoch never completely disappeared. While it was lost to much of the Western world for centuries, it survived in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, where it remains part of the biblical canon to this day. Ethiopian religious tradition has preserved the book as a sacred text, demonstrating that while it was suppressed in some regions, it continued to hold significance in others. Additionally, fragments of the book were discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls, proving that it was widely circulated in ancient times. These discoveries have reignited scholarly interest in the text and its influence on religious thought. The suppression of the Book of Enoch raises important questions about how religious texts are selected and preserved. The history of its exclusion highlights the ways in which religious authorities shape doctrine, often making decisions based on theological concerns, political considerations, and the need for unity. It also demonstrates how certain ideas and narratives can fall out of favor, not necessarily because they lack value, but because they do not align with the dominant religious perspectives of a given time. Today, the Book of Enoch continues to be studied for its historical, literary, and theological significance. While it may not be part of the official biblical canon, it remains an essential piece of ancient religious literature that offers insight into the beliefs and traditions of early Jewish and Christian communities. Its narratives, moral lessons, and visions of justice continue to inspire discussion and debate, reminding us that history is often shaped not just by what is remembered, but also by what is forgotten. The Book of Enoch is more than just a religious or historical text. It serves as a window into the moral and ethical concerns of ancient civilizations. While its narratives describe divine judgment and the consequences of corruption, these themes are not unique to religious tradition. Many of the ideas found in Enoch's writings parallel real historical events and reflect the moral philosophies that guided early societies. By examining these connections, we can better understand how the book fits into the broader human experience. One of the most striking themes in the Book of Enoch is the corruption of power. Throughout history, numerous civilizations have struggled with the consequences of unchecked authority. The warnings in Enoch's text about moral decay and the misuse of influence can be compared to the downfall of great empires. In ancient Mesopotamia, for example, the Akkadian and Babylonian empires faced internal instability due to corruption and the overreach of rulers who prioritized personal ambition over justice. Similarly, in the later years of Rome, political greed and moral decline contributed to the empire's gradual collapse. These historical patterns align with the warnings in the Book of Enoch, which cautions that when leaders stray from ethical principles, entire civilizations suffer the consequences. Another key theme in the Book of Enoch is the accountability of those in power. In ancient legal traditions, rulers were expected to act as stewards of justice. The Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest recorded legal systems, emphasized the responsibility of kings to maintain order and protect the weak. In China, Confucian philosophy taught that a ruler's legitimacy depended on their moral integrity, a concept known as the mandate of heaven. If a ruler became corrupt or oppressive, they were believed to lose divine approval, leading to their downfall. The Book of Enoch presents a similar idea, stating that those who exploit their power will ultimately be judged and removed. This reflects a universal belief among ancient cultures that leadership must be guided by moral principles, and that when this balance is broken, society faces inevitable consequences. The book's vision of divine justice also aligns with ethical debates found in early philosophy. In Greek thought, philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle explored the relationship between virtue and justice. Plato's concept of the ideal ruler, a leader who governs with wisdom and fairness, mirrors the moral expectations described in Enoch's writings. Similarly, the Stoics, a school of thought that emerged in ancient Greece and Rome, emphasized the importance of living according to reason and ethical principles. These ideas resonate with the Book of Enoch's call for righteousness and moral discipline, suggesting that concerns about justice and ethical governance were widely shared across different cultures. The Book of Enoch's emphasis on the consequences of human actions also aligns with themes found in early legal and moral codes. Many ancient societies recognized the importance of maintaining social harmony through laws and moral teachings. In ancient Egypt, the concept of Ma'at represented truth, balance, and justice, serving as the foundation for both legal and ethical decision-making. Those who violated Ma'at were believed to face judgment in the afterlife. Similarly, in Hindu philosophy, the idea of karma teaches that one's actions directly influence their future, reinforcing the belief that morality is not just a personal choice but a universal law. The Book of Enoch conveys a similar message, stating that individuals and societies will ultimately face the consequences of their deeds. Furthermore, the warnings about human pride and defiance found in the Book of Enoch echo stories from multiple historical and religious traditions. The biblical Tower of Babel, for example, tells of humanity's attempt to challenge divine authority, leading to their dispersal and loss of a unified language. In Greek mythology, the legend of Icarus serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris, flying too close to the sun despite warnings, leading to his downfall. These narratives reinforce a common lesson found in ancient literature, that overconfidence and a disregard for limits often result in disaster. The Book of Enoch follows this pattern, warning that when individuals or societies seek power without wisdom, they inevitably bring destruction upon themselves. By analyzing these historical and philosophical connections, it becomes clear that the Book of Enoch is not just a religious text, but a reflection of broader moral principles that have shaped human civilization. It serves as a record of how ancient societies grappled with justice, leadership, and accountability. Although written thousands of years ago, its messages remain relevant, as similar ethical challenges continue to arise in modern times. Whether viewed as a sacred text or as a historical document, the Book of Enoch provides valuable insight into the timeless struggle between righteousness and corruption. The Book of Enoch remains one of the most intriguing and historically significant ancient texts, though it was excluded from the biblical canon. Its influence can still be seen in religious traditions, philosophical ideas, and historical interpretations of morality and justice. The book's themes, accountability, corruption, divine judgment, and the consequences of human actions, have resonated across cultures and continue to be relevant in modern discussions about ethics, leadership, and history. One of the key reasons the Book of Enoch endures is its moral and ethical teachings. Across civilizations, societies have debated the role of justice and the responsibility of leaders. The book reinforces the idea that power comes with accountability, and that those who exploit their authority for selfish purposes will ultimately face consequences. This message aligns with ethical traditions from the Code of Hammurabi to Confucian ideals of righteous governance, suggesting that concerns about leadership and morality have always been fundamental to human society. The book's influence on religious thought is also undeniable. While it was removed from the biblical canon, its ideas can still be found in Judeo-Christian teachings, particularly in themes of divine justice and prophecy. Early Christian writers referenced Enoch's visions, and elements of its teachings on morality and judgment have shaped theological discussions for centuries. Its continued preservation in Ethiopian Christianity demonstrates that, for some traditions, its teachings remain spiritually significant. From a historical perspective, the Book of Enoch provides valuable insight into the beliefs and concerns of ancient communities. Its themes reflect the fears and hopes of societies that lived through periods of war, oppression, and political instability. The book serves as a record of how ancient peoples sought to explain their world, emphasizing the importance of justice, wisdom, and moral responsibility. Even today, the Book of Enoch continues to spark discussions and academic research. Scholars analyze its connections to other ancient texts, tracing its influence on early religious movements and comparing its moral teachings to ethical systems across civilizations. Historians explore its relevance to real-world events, considering how its themes of corruption and judgment mirror the rise and fall of historical empires. The book remains a subject of debate, with some viewing it as a critical piece of religious literature and others as a historical artifact that offers insight into early human thought. Ultimately, the enduring legacy of the Book of Enoch is its ability to provoke thought and reflection. Whether one views it as a sacred text, a historical record, or a collection of moral teachings, its messages remain timeless. Its warnings against the misuse of power, its calls for justice, and its emphasis on ethical leadership continue to hold relevance in today's world. As long as societies grapple with questions of morality, justice, and leadership, the Book of Enoch will remain an essential and thought-provoking piece of ancient literature. If you found this exploration of the Book of Enoch insightful, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about its historical significance and the reasons for its exclusion from the biblical canon? Join the discussion and let us know your perspective. To support our team in bringing more thought-provoking content, please subscribe to our channel and enable notifications so you never miss an update. Share this video with friends and family who may find it interesting, and don't forget to hit the like button below to help more people discover this content. Thank you for watching.